The place was fancy, all lit up with these soft, golden lights that made everything look warm. You could hear people talking, glasses clinking, the whole Valentine's Day vibe going strong with couples laughing. Me? I was sitting alone at my table, swirling the wine in my glass. Hard to read what I was thinking, probably because I wasn't feeling much of anything. I'm not really an emotions guy. My life's always been planned out, you know? Like the buildings I design. Everything's got its place, no surprises allowed. But tonight, well, fate had a different idea. I took a sip of my wine, and my eyes just happened to wander across the room. And that's when everything just froze. There she was, Natalie Brooks, sitting at a table in the corner. Brown hair, that smile. I swear, it had been 3 years, and I'd pretty much convinced myself she was just a memory, buried under a pile of blueprints. But there she was, same as always, that easy charm that used to throw my whole organized world off balance. But it wasn't just seeing Natalie again that got to me. Next to her were 3 kids. 2 boys, dark hair, and these crazy blue eyes that looked exactly like mine. And then there was a little girl, small but feisty, with eyes that were just like Natalie's. I gripped my glass tighter, my heart hammering in my chest. They looked like me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. 3 years, 3 kids, and I didn't even know they existed. The neat little life I'd built had just come crashing down. My heart was pounding like crazy, staring at those kids. Every little detail in their faces was too familiar, too spot on to just be a coincidence. That fancy restaurant suddenly felt like a tiny box, and all the noise around me just faded away, replaced by this awful truth hitting me hard. I couldn't sit there anymore. I pushed back my chair and walked right across the room, not caring who was watching. Every step felt heavier than the last, like all my past mistakes had suddenly landed on my shoulders. My pulse was racing. Natalie was smiling at the kids, tucking a stray hair behind the little girl's ear. But the second she looked up and saw me, that smile vanished. Our eyes met, and for a second, everything else disappeared. I opened my mouth to say something, but my throat was dry. My eyes kept going back and forth between Natalie and the kids, trying to make sense of the impossible. Finally, I managed to get the words out, my voice low and shaky, full of disbelief. Are they mine? The question hung there in the air between us, loaded with years of stuff left unsaid, lost time. Natalie hesitated. I saw something flash across her face. Maybe guilt, maybe regret, maybe a little bit of both. Natalie didn't move a muscle, didn't even breathe, just waited. Then, she let out a soft breath and looked right at me, clear as day. Yeah, Grayson, they're yours. Felt like the floor dropped out from under me. Everything I thought I knew, everything I'd worked for, just fell apart. I just stood there, breathing harder all of a sudden. The restaurant noise faded away, and it was just Natalie and the 3 kids I never knew existed. 3 freaking years. 3 years, and she didn't tell me. My jaw tightened up. I was all mixed up, shock, anger, and something else, something raw and painful. Why? I asked, my voice low and mean. Why didn't you tell me? Natalie blinked, and I saw something pass across her face that I couldn't quite read. A real deep sadness that bothered me. I tried, she said quietly. I called, left messages, but you never answered. My breath caught. Those missed calls, the messages I never opened. I just figured she was desperate, trying to hold on to something that was already gone. I shut her out before she even had a chance to talk. A cold feeling settled in my chest. This was my fault. I looked over at the kids. One boy was watching me with this curious look, but the other one looked like he was guarding something. The little girl was holding onto Natalie's sleeve, her eyes wide and scared. 3 years, 3 kids, 3 lives I didn't even know I was missing. I swallowed hard, feeling guilty as hell. I want to meet them, I said, my voice steady. Natalie crossed her arms, her eyes telling me to watch myself. It's not that simple, Grayson. They don't know you. You can't just waltz in and say you're their dad. I narrowed my eyes. They are mine. Natalie sighed. She looked me up and down for a long time before nodding. Tomorrow, the park, noon. It wasn't her saying yes, it was a test. And I couldn't screw this up. I stood at the park entrance, my hands in my pockets, trying to calm down. Kids were running around, laughing, just a normal afternoon. This wasn't my kind of place, all chaotic and unpredictable, with emotions running wild. But today, I had no choice but to jump in. Then I saw them. Natalie was walking toward me, looking calm but ready for anything. Next to her were the 3 kids, all moving together. Caleb saw me first. The dark-haired boy with the bright eyes grinned and started bouncing. "Mom, is that the guy from last night?" Natalie sighed. "Caleb, we talked about this." I crouched down a little and gave them a smile. "Yeah, that's me." Caleb tilted his head, like he was trying to figure me out. "Who are you?" That question hit me harder than I expected. I looked at Natalie, but she didn't say anything. This was on me. I turned back to the kids, my voice calm and gentle. "I'm Grayson, and I'd really like to get to know you." Caleb looked at me sideways like he was measuring my words, then nodded a little bit like he was saying, "Okay, we'll see." But Wyatt was different. The older boy, Wyatt, stood there with his arms crossed. His eyes, those deep blue eyes that were just like mine, were studying me, quiet and suspicious. "Why are you here?" Wyatt's voice was sharper, more guarded. I swallowed. "Because I wanted to meet you." Wyatt didn't say anything, but his face said it all. Why now? Why not 3 years ago? I knew I had a long way to go to earn his trust. The silence hung there until a little voice broke it. "Mommy, I'm thirsty." It was the smallest one, Sophie, holding onto Natalie's hand and barely whispering. Natalie reached into her bag for a water bottle, but before she could open it, I held out my hand. "I got it." Natalie hesitated, then handed me the bottle. I crouched down and held it out to the little girl. "Here you go." Sophie stared at me for a long time before taking it with her little hands. It was a small thing, but it felt like a big deal. Wyatt still didn't trust me, not one bit. But Caleb was willing to give me a shot, and Sophie wasn't looking at me like I was a stranger anymore. It was a start. I never thought just meeting some kids could wear me out so much. But I didn't stop. The next day, I went back to the park. And the day after that, and the day after that. At first, Natalie stayed back, watching from a distance. She didn't get in the way, but she didn't make it easy on me either. This was my fight. Caleb was easy to win over. That kid was a nonstop ball of energy, always dragging me into something new, racing, climbing, exploring. Caleb just took me in without even thinking about it. Sophie was more quiet, but she slowly started to warm up. She didn't talk much, but she'd sit next to me when I read stories to all 3 of them. One afternoon, just when I stopped to take a drink, a little voice said, "Uncle Grayson, can you keep reading?" My heart kinda squeezed. Wyatt, like I figured, was the hardest. He kept his distance, always watching, always skeptical. When I played with Caleb, Wyatt stood back with his arms crossed. When I read to Sophie, Wyatt pretended he wasn't listening. But I knew better. One evening, as I walked them home, Wyatt suddenly spoke up. "Are you going to leave again?" That question hit me hard. I took a deep breath and crouched down to look Wyatt in the eye. "No, buddy, I'm not going anywhere." Wyatt didn't react, didn't say anything. He just shrugged and went inside. I knew he still didn't trust me, but at least he was asking questions now. It was a start, a little crack in the wall. I thought things were getting better. I was wrong. That day, I promised to take the kids to the aquarium after school. Caleb couldn't stop talking about sharks. Sophie picked out a blue dress to match the ocean. Even Wyatt, though he'd never admit it, was looking forward to it. But then work got in the way. A super important meeting. A client who needed me right away. I told myself it would just take an hour, tops. But by the time I was done, the sun was already down. When I got to Natalie's place, the door opened and there were the kids. Caleb was all curled up on the couch. Sophie was clinging to her mom, and Wyatt. Wyatt looked at me with this look I'll never forget. Cold. Disappointed. "You promised." Wyatt's voice wasn't loud, but it hit hard. I opened my mouth, but there was no excuse good enough. Wyatt's hands balled up into fists. "You're just like before." Natalie crossed her arms. She wasn't even angry, which was worse. She just looked tired. "Go home, Grayson." The door shut. The silence was deafening. I sat in my car for what felt like forever, staring at the dark windows of Natalie's house. I spent a year trying to prove myself, and I messed it all up in one shot. I sat there, just staring at the closed door. I had blown it. My phone buzzed, a reminder from my assistant about a meeting tomorrow. But for the first time, I just didn't care. It couldn't end like this. I got out of the car, walked up to the door, and knocked soft. Natalie opened it, but she didn't look mad. She looked worried. Behind her on the couch, Wyatt was curled up under a blanket, his face red with fever. Caleb and Sophie were sitting next to him, looking worried. My chest tightened up. What's wrong with him? My voice was low and urgent. Natalie sighed. He's had a fever since last night. He's been out of it all day. Without even thinking, I stepped inside. I'm staying. Natalie hesitated for a second, but didn't argue. That night, I stayed right by Wyatt's side. I changed cold cloths, held his small hand, tried to calm Caleb and Sophie when they got scared. Near dawn, Wyatt's eyes fluttered open. His voice was weak but steady. You're still here. I squeezed his hand gently. I told you, buddy. I'm not going anywhere. For the first time, Wyatt didn't look away from me. The next morning, sunlight was coming through the curtains. Wyatt was still weak, but he was awake. Caleb and Sophie were on the floor, drawing all over the place, while Natalie poured 2 cups of coffee. I sat across from her, my hands on the table, like if I let go, the whole moment would just disappear. Natalie looked at me, her voice softer than before. You really stayed? I gripped my coffee cup tighter and nodded. I promised. We sat there in silence, but it didn't feel heavy this time. Finally, Natalie sighed, like she was letting go of something she'd been holding onto for too long. Stay for breakfast. For a second, I was taken off guard. It wasn't her forgiving me or promising anything for the future. But it was a chance, and I wasn't going to blow it this time. In the days after that, I kept showing up. Not with big promises, but by just being there and doing stuff. I started showing up early to help with getting the kids to school. I waited patiently for Wyatt to let me in. And one day, just as we were leaving the park, that boy, Wyatt, just reached for my hand out of nowhere. It only lasted a second, but it meant everything. One evening, after walking the kids home, I hesitated at the door. Natalie looked at me, and I saw something softer in her eyes. I don't know what's going to happen, I said quietly. But I know I'm not leaving again. Natalie didn't answer right away. Then slowly she smiled. A real smile. I know. And for the first time, when the door closed, I didn't feel like I was being shut out. For the first time, I felt like I'd finally found my way home. A year went by. I wasn't the same guy I used to be. Not the guy who lived for work, who was scared of everything. Now I was a dad. I knew how to tie Caleb's shoes. I knew Sophie needed a bedtime story to fall asleep. And I knew that Wyatt would never admit he needed me. But the little nods, those quiet times we spent together, were proof enough that he did. But I still had one more thing to do. I had to make things right with Natalie. That evening, I took Natalie to the beach, the place where we had some of our best memories. She just stood there, watching the waves come in, looking calm, but a little distant. Remember the first time we came here? I asked, keeping my voice gentle. Natalie smiled a little. How could I forget? I took a deep breath and turned to face her. I lost you once, and for the longest time, I told myself it was for the best. That work, success, and being in control was all I needed. But I was wrong, Natalie. I was so wrong. You were my home, and I walked away from it. I won't make that mistake again. I saw her catch her breath as I knelt down, holding up a little velvet box. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you. I can't change the past, but I want to spend my future making it up to you. Natalie Brooks, will you marry me? Tears welled up in Natalie's eyes. But they weren't from sadness this time. They were from happiness. Yes. 3 months later, under the warm sunshine of a garden, Natalie walked toward me in a beautiful white dress, and the kids were right there with her. Caleb was grinning from ear to ear. Sophie was waving like crazy, and Wyatt, though he was trying to act cool, couldn't hide his smile. As I kissed Natalie, the kids cheered. We were finally a real family. And that's the story of Grayson, Natalie, and how they found their way back to each other. What do you think? Do you think people can really change for the ones they love? Let us know what you think in the comments. If you like this story, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more feel-good stories. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for sticking around until the end. See you in the next story.